to the MPG podcast. I'm John Graybill, joined with...
Jordan Missig, as always.
It is so good to see you, Jordan. We're recording this April 19th. You had a big weekend at the racetrack, 17, 18, or 16, 17, 18 out there. You're focused on your driving on Friday with the F3 car, right? Out doing some testing?
Yeah, we were out here at the Audubon Country Club doing some laps in the F3 car, just kind of staying in tune from race to race, obviously, because the two races between Road Atlanta, which was on March 27th to the 29th, and Road America, which is going to be coming up here in about a couple weeks of May 14th to the 16th. That's about a month and a half spread, I would say. So that's about 3 weeks from now, but a month and a half spread between each race. So in between, we're just trying to get some laps in the F3, just trying to stay in tune, keep the technique up, and just kind of stay in tune with what the car and the handling feels, because you want to stay hot while you can. You don't want to go cold turkey and feel how the car is. So we want to kind of stay in tune with the car until we get to Road America, which is going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Road America up in Wisconsin, north of Milwaukee at Elkhart Lake.
Yes, beautiful racetrack.
Historic racetrack. They do an IndyCar race up there. Wonderful. I've only been there in the simulator.
Really? Never been there in real life?
In real life yet, so I am looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting that.
Well, I will tell you this. The race weekend we race at is SVRA weekend. So there are Miatas there, so we'll have to get your son up there to race that weekend, potentially.
Yeah, it's on our radar. It's on our radar. So then you go from driving mode into school mode and then into coaching mode yesterday. You had a busy day coaching yesterday.
Yeah, I'm bouncing all over the board, it looks like. Yeah, no, coaching yesterday was coaching some kart racing as well in the morning, and then did some coaching for the Spec Miata. We had a Spec Miata race out here at the Audubon Country Club. So I was doing some coaching out there for that race. A couple young kids, obviously moving up into Spec Miata this year. Learning in the ropes of what car racing is all about, going from karts to cars. So that's always a good transition to see, and it's part of our development program here at Audubon that we're really happy and really striving for. And we're happy to see the kids that come from karting move up in the cars, and hopefully to see them succeed both here at Audubon and then hopefully eventually into the real world of racing.
Yeah, so that's pretty unique. So you following your footsteps, going from karting to your next big move up was radicals, and then into many different kinds of frames, but settling here on the F3 in the past couple weeks. One thing that was unique that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit is this first Spec Miata race that we had there, which you were there helping and coaching, and it was a rain race, and that brought up a myriad. Well, it wasn't a rain race. It was a wet.
No.
Beginning of the day.
It rained in the morning, and then it turned into a dry race.
Yeah, and so, which makes it even more difficult. But it brought up 1,000 questions in my mind. How do you race? How do you race in the rain? And then how do you try to manage all of that craziness? I mean, what's the techniques, or how do you go about it when your mindset, you get up in the morning and you go, oh my gosh, it's raining. It could be wet, it could be dry. This also follows in yesterday, the 18th of April, the F1 race in Italy. Oh my gosh, crazy. How could I see how
crazy race? The
lead guy, Verstappen, he's up in front. I can see how he can see where he's going. I can't see how anybody else can even see where they're going.
No, it's tough. It's tough with the spray. That's why, on open wheel cars and our cars especially, we have what we call rain lights on our cars. It's a switch that we can put on our steering wheel. It's a button that we press, and it illuminates a light that's right where behind the. It's a light that's right behind the rear wing that flashes to allow people to know that there's a car in front of you, and that's the rear end of the car. So when the mist is happening, you can't see anything in the mist, but you can see a flashing light through the mist to signify that that's a car in front of you. You're going to be passing or catching up on.
Well, that was when I drive my daily driver. It's got an infrared camera on it. So do you have those in
Yeah.
cars? Do they have that in the cars? Or?
Well, we have cameras in the car, yeah. GoPros is what we put on top of our car to kind of use for videos. But it's simply like if you're going down the road and there's a heavy rainstorm, you see everybody on the highway throw their hazard lights on. It's the exact same way because you see this mist and the hazard lights are to illuminate a car in front of you to show you where the car is. So it's the same thing with rain lights on race cars, is that they have them at the rear of the car so the car behind can see the flashing lights that the car is in front of them to signify just where they are on the racetrack.
So we have the normal racing line, which one would say would be the turn entry is to the outside, the apex is to the inside, and the track out, a couple different words for that, I guess, is out again to the outside. That is where all the rubber gets deposited because that's where everybody wants to drive because that's the fastest way around a dry racetrack.
Correct.
I understand that part. I get that part. What do you do when it's wet?
Well, for F1 guys, rain line doesn't seem to matter to them, unless you're Max Verstappen, because Max Verstappen to Brazil, the rain line matters and everything. But when you look at every other track, especially when they're at Imola this past weekend, the F1 guys are driving the exact same line they'd be driving if it was dry. They're driving the dry line, basically. But the reason why they could do it and we can't is because the track surfaces in Europe are very smooth and are very fresh and new, and they're well taken care of, I want to say, to the point to where there's no oil or rubber that's massively laid down on those lines, and the rain tires that they run can stick and aren't sliding everywhere. Yes, there's probably a little bit of traction break, but it's not as significant as you would see here in the U.S. To where, because we had one of our guys, or we seen one of the guys in the Formula Regional race over in Road Atlanta, try to run the dry line as if he was over in Europe racing. And unfortunately, it wasn't working out to him, and he was losing traction and wasn't getting traction off the corners and going into corners. Whereas if you run a wet line at some places, you're able to keep the traction throughout from the entry to the middle to the exit part of the corners. So it's interesting to find the grip levels that way, but it's just very interesting to see the difference between racing here in the U.S. on how we drive a rain line versus the F1 guys or some guys over in Europe and how they race a wet line. It's two totally different lines, but they're two totally different speed differences. So where you could see one's faster than the other, and then you try it at a different track, and it might not be as fast as the other track.
I see. A lot to consider. So when you add rain tires, normally race cars run on slicks, or no tread tires really. They're just one piece
Correct.
of rubber.
Yes.
How do rain tires, which do have tread, I assume that they're just wicking away the water. How does that play into? Do we put rain tires on and run? You still have to run the rain line in rain tires?
Now, typically, it comes to a point to where you're finding the grip levels of the track. Now, the rain tires obviously have tread, so they're almost like a street tire. So they're trying to they're throwing water in between the tread to allow the car to get grip in between your tires. So it's just like a street tire. Now, normally with street tires, you don't run them hot. You try to keep them cool, and that's how long you can run them. When a rain tire gets hot, it starts to kind of dissipate the rubber a little bit and starts to turn into a little bit of a slick tire. Now, that's why in rain, you try to keep the tires as cool as possible. You never want to get them too hot, otherwise the tread starts to go away. So now in difference to the line that you're running, you're basically trying to find the grip. And obviously, here in the U.S., when you try to run the normal dry line, there's so much rubber and oil built up on those lines and the paint itself is so slippery as it is, that if you put the tires on it, you're just breaking traction, you're losing grip, and you're just sliding very easily. And when you try to put power down, the rear tires start to spin, and it causes the car to potentially get loose. Whereas if you run the outer line, which is where the rubber isn't, there's generally grip up there. Don't ask me how or why, but there generally is grip based on when you're running, and you can feel it within the tire. You can feel the car grip into the racing surface, and you feel like you have grip on the outer half. Don't know why. Laws of physics, probably, but you can feel it inside the car when you go out there to the outside line. Now, you kind of drive the car based on the grip level. You can tend to feel when you're pushing it, if you're going to lose the grip, or if there's more grip to it. Now, that being said, that kind of determines how hard you can push, and that comes with a comfort level or confidence level of inside the car. And that's why we can see when it comes to rain, you can see some drivers be fast, and you can see some drivers be slow. And you also see some slow drivers in the dry be very fast in the rain because they have the confidence level to drive faster in the rain because they have the confidence level and they know what the car is giving them. They can feel the grip level of the car, and they just read what the car is just telling them. Now, that's the kind of difference in why they say rain is the greatest equalizer. Because anybody can drive fast in the dry. But the true racers come out and shine their colors if they can drive fast in both dry and the rain.
And how do you just hopefully it rains, you're going to practice and you say, hey, it's raining today, let's go out and practice. I mean, that seems to be a very unique subset of racing that doesn't always, you're on the track, you have it scheduled. And when you say, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow, everybody come out, let's hurry up and come practice. I mean, I think that's very challenging to get to a point where you can practice in the rain so you can get good at it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that you have to take a bull by the horns, basically. You know, it's something that you just have to go out there and just try. You have to go try it because obviously when it comes to race time, you don't get the choice of, oh, I want to race or if I don't in the rain, you know. You kind of are forced to go out there if you want to. Unless you're club racing, then you kind of had the choice. But from a professional racer standpoint, you don't get a choice. You don't just pack up your bags and go home because it's raining. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to go out and race. So any opportunity to go out and race and drive in the rain is more power to you. You know, it kind of gives you a sense to learn a track in a different way, and it gets you a sense to learn a track, you know, for racing, because this is totally different conditions that you ever been in. Because most times when you go to a track, it is dry. You're learning the dry line and everything, and you're learning the dry aspects of the track. But when it rains, you have to explore those different opportunities and different aspects that the track offers. Some tracks you can drive the regular line, and then you may have to drive the rain line a different corner. But you don't know that until you experience it in the rain. Now, obviously, the biggest fear for a driver is to put the car off track, because if you put the car off track in the grass, it's wet, you're not going to slow down. You're actually, if anything, you're probably going to speed up. And the reason why that is because when you're going into a corner, you're able to use the brakes. Well, if you put the car off track, the tires are no longer having any traction or grip to the track surface or any kind of surface. You're just sliding at that point, and you're actually gaining speed because you're not allowed to slow the car down. Now, that eventually will put you into the wall. Now, when you're going on track, you know, obviously you're just looking for all the grip level you could find. And that's just experimenting each different corner, trying to find out where all the grip is in the tire, in the car, and just trying to read all the feedback of what the car is just trying to tell you. That's basically like the difference of trying to find the speed in the dry line versus the rain line.
Yeah, I think that's again, that's fascinating just to do that. In an open wheel car, a couple other questions. Does the rain hurt? I mean, you're going hundreds of miles an hour. Does it hurt when it hits you, or are you pretty much covered up and it's not affecting you, or can you feel it on your neck or shoulders or?
No, I mean, obviously when it's monsoon raining or like raining potential downpour, chances are they're not letting us race because the cars aren't very grippy when there's a lot of standing water. You're just hydroplaning at that time and the wheels are just spinning. When it's just raining, no, you don't feel it at all, really. I mean, yeah, you could see the rain pick up through your visor, and that's one of the hardest things, too, as a driver, because you're going so fast at some speeds that you can really, it's very hard to tell the difference between a light sprinkle rain and a very heavy downpour rain. You can just tell by, you can't look at the skies, you can't look at what's in front of you, you can't see the rain falling. The only thing you can tell is by the amount of rain and water your visor is picking up. If it's collecting water very fast and rapidly, or is it collecting at a very slow pace? So you're just judging how much rain is coming down based on how much rain is hitting your visor and the timing of the visor.
Good question. Do you have tear-offs like a motocross guy does, to get the water off? Is that? Are you going like this the whole time?
Yeah, we do.
Windshield wipers?
Well, at some point, you want a windshield wiper installed on your visor. At some point, you start to run on the tear-offs to where you start to scrub your visor a little bit, and that's when it really messes up. But you kind of have to because you either A, you don't have enough tear-offs on it, or B, it's raining that hard to where you need to rub your visor just to kind of see. It gets to that point to where it's not like a car windshield wiper where you have a windshield wiper on your visor. You don't have the luxury of that. You kind of just have to deal with whatever you have and make the best of it. So you just try the best as you can to kind of wipe all the residue water that's on it. But if it's raining so hard, it quickly comes back, and it gets annoying at sometimes, but you just kind of have to put up with it and deal with it. But yeah, I normally run tear-offs on my helmet, both in dry and wet racing. Obviously, because when you're racing in dries, a lot of rubber pickup happens, a lot of bugs get on your visor, and your tear-off helps to just get a clean sheet of visor, you guess you could say, and get a clear view of what's happening in front of you. So tear-offs are definitely a plus and definitely needed on open cockpit cars. Not so much in closed cockpit because obviously you have a windshield in front of you, but open cockpit cars is definitely needed and a must thing to have.
Awesome. And you have a practice lap in the rain that you have to show us?
Yeah, no, so I don't have much. It's not a regular dry lap, but here we go. I have quite a bit of a dry lap here. It's dry in the wet weather, I would say. Let me pull it up, see if it works for me. Here we are. So here is a lap that I have of me driving in the rain, I should say. I'll start the lap back at the very beginning point. So we're coming onto the front straightaway here, and as we can see already, it's kind of wet. Right now we can kind of see that it's dry on the dry line, but all the way to the right-hand side of the racetrack, there's some damp spots. So we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. As we head down the straightaway going towards turn number 1, we can see it kind of dampens up a little bit, and you can see right here, there's a lot of water here right at the apex. If you can see right here, follow my mouse, right here at the apex, we see a lot of dampness and a lot of water. So we know there's probably a couple puddles down here, so we can't run down at the apex, and plus we're on slick tires too at this point. So we're on dry tires, and dry tires that are not up to temperature yet. And if we go down to the apex right here in the slick part of the track, you're probably going to break the traction of the tire because we don't have the tires up to temp and have no heat in them yet. So what we do is we try to run kind of conventional line that's not at the apex, but a little bit off because we can get the left side tire here that has all the load on it in the dry area that we see right here, where it's kind of a little bit lighter shade of gray, not darker shade. So we have where the dry area is, and we're just trying to keep the grip here. So we can see as we try to add a little bit of power to it and acceleration, the car does tend to get a little bit loose on us. But then as we come up to the top of the hill, it's a little bit of dry up here. So as we go through the lap, and the very first thing about an out lap here too is to make sure to just, you use it as we call a reconnaissance lap. And what you try to do is you're just looking around the racetrack, looking at all the spots that are water, where the dry area is, and you're just analyzing the whole part of the track to find out where all the grip's going to be, where it's going to develop, where's the most water, and where's the least amount of water, and where you can drive throughout the session. That's the main key of the first lap, is to just kind of take it slow and understand what conditions are thrown at you. Now, in this part, we see here, there's a whole bunch of water here. Unfortunately, this is a part of the track where it's one line only. You can't run out here because there's no time here, and you can't run out here because there's no time to be found, and plus you're going in a very interesting part of the track to where you don't want to be. It's called no man's land. So what we have to do is run one line here, and as we can see, there's a whole strip of water here. So we have to be very cautious through this and not have any throttle kind of put into it and keep the wheel as straight as possible. Otherwise, we're going to have the car get a little loose on us, and next thing you know, we're going to find ourselves having to fight the car or potentially holding onto the car from a potential spin. So as we do is we kind of slowly go through here as cautious as we can, and we have as we can see, the camera has been flicked up with a bunch of water. There's a lot of water here at the apex as well, so we need to take this as cautious as we can, not putting as much throttle into it as well. Now we see a snap of oversteer there. That's us trying to go into the throttle a little bit, but the tires are not heated up yet, and what we have is a little bit of standing water there. So what it is, it's breaking the traction seal of the tire and getting the car a little bit loose. So what we have to do is try to keep our foot as steady as possible, not rushing the throttle. Otherwise, we're going to have the car snap into an oversteer, and next thing you know, we're going to be spinning out right here and probably ending up in the gravel. Not potentially in the wall. I don't know. It would have been, I don't want to really find out, obviously, but we probably would have ended up here in the gravel. So we just were slowly feeding the throttle in, keeping the car in control of our power, so that way we can handle the car on the exit and keep us going onto the next turn and complete the lap. Otherwise, we find ourselves spinning out, and who knows what would happen after that. And still, same thing. We're just trying to find out all the grip spots here. Right here, it is very dry, so we're able to run the dry line as it is. And then as we come into this next corner, turn 7, we notice that, yes, it is dry here at the apex, but it's wet on the exit. So what we do is we just kind of slowly roll the throttle here on the exit, slowly rolling in the power, so that way we're not creeping up on the revs or increasing the turbo to allow the rear tires to kind of spin a little bit, causing a lot of traction underneath the car to kind of break in. So we keep the traction underneath to allow us to roll back into power smoothly, keep the grip within ourselves, and able to get a nice drive down the straightaway. We see a lot of wet spots here, but right here it is pretty dry, so we run the conventional dry line, get down to the apex here, kind of run a little bit of conventional on the apex on the exit of the corner, and just kind of run throughout the rest of the lap. As we can see that the track surface is pretty gray here, not too many wet spots, but enough to keep the car dry and keep grip underneath ourselves. And that's kind of a lap underneath dry and wet conditions. So with that being said, you know, it's kind of a track that we need to kind of worry about when the time comes, but
wow, that was pretty cool, Jordan. That's fascinating. I don't know how to do that. I've never done it. Maybe someday I'll do it, but I'll have to work up to that. Thanks so much for being with us. Best of luck practicing this week and getting ready for SVRA weekend with the FR Americas race. And for more information about Jordan Missick, Google Jordan Missick. That's easy. JordanMissickRacing.com.
Yep.
Let's talk about some sponsors.
PSAcheck.org. Thank them for coming on board this season with us. Remember, if you need to get your PSA checked at a young age in order to stop yourself from getting prostate cancer when you get older at the age of 45. No, get it checked when you're at the age of 23 or 22 before it's too late. And then Audubon Country Club. Can't thank them enough for allowing me, myself, and the Newman Walks Racing team to kind of use their facilities as our testing backyard, as well as, you know, what they've been able to do to help me produce my driving career and develop myself from karts into cars now. They've been with me 100% step of the way, and I can't thank them enough for what they've been able to do with my career and how it's turned out to the way it is today. So huge thanks to Audubon Country Club for all they've done for me throughout my career.
Yeah, great sponsors. Get that PSA so we can get a track record so we know if something changes, so we know we take a look at that. And Audubon Country Club, yes, thanks. Big shout out, and have a great week.